In this video, we're going to go through some GED practice questions to help you raise your score on each GED section so that you can pass faster. Let's get started. In the United States, temperatures are usually reported in degrees Fahrenheit. In other countries, temperatures are often reported to degrees Celsius. The formula F equals 1.8 C plus 32 can be used to convert from degrees Celsius to degrees Fahrenheit. Suppose a weather report says that yesterday's high temperature in Paris, France was 10 degrees Celsius. What is the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit? Okay, so let me give you a chance to pause the video now and try this out, and then we'll go over it. And if you get stuck, don't worry, I'll teach you how to do it. Okay, hopefully you had a chance to try this, and if not, that's okay too, but let's go over how to do it. So we know that in this question, what we want to do is we want to find the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit. And we have this formula right here, and the first way to solve a question like this, a temperature conversion question, is to just use the formula. You just take the temperature in Celsius, so we have 10 degrees Celsius, and you're going to go up into the formula, and where you see this C right here, you're going to replace that with a 10. All right, and so this will become 1.8 times 10 plus 32. So let me rewrite that down here. So we now have the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit equals 1.8 times 10, because remember we're replacing the C in the formula with 10. So we have 1.8 times 10 plus 32. And for the majority of GED math, you'll be able to use a calculator. And on GED Science, you can use a calculator too. So I've got my phone off screen, and that's my calculator for today. And I'm going to do the math here, and that's the fastest way to do it. So 1.8 times 10, I get 18. So let me just draw an 18 up here. All right, so we have 18, and let's do 18 plus 32. And I did that in my calculator. I got 50. So 50 is the correct answer. So there's also a way to do it that's a little faster that doesn't involve the formula. You basically just put a few things in your calculator, and it's not really that important for right now, but if you want to check that out, I will put a link down below to a video where I teach you how to do that trick. But don't worry about it for right now. Let's move on to the next question. Question number 2 is a science question. So here's our first official science question, and it asks us, or it tells us here, the average human fingernail grows at a rate of 3.47 millimeters per month. And it tells us that 1 millimeter equals 0.1 centimeters. And it also says how much in centimeters would the average human fingernail grow in 1 year. And it gives us some answer choices. So go ahead now, pause the video, and try to figure this one out. Okay, let's go over this question now. So here what we want to do is understand that there's multiple ways to approach this. As with most questions on the GED, for math and for science, there's not usually just one way to think about it. But here, let me show you how I think is the best way to approach it. So we're given this 3.47 millimeters per month, and we want to figure out how many centimeters there'll be in years. So first, let's take this 3.47, and what I want to do is I want to multiply that by 12. Now, why would I multiply this by 12? Well, the reason is because there's 12 months in a year, right? So because there's 12 months in a year, and we want to know how many centimeters there are in years, what we want to do is we want to take this value in millimeters, and we're going to multiply it by 12. So I did that in my calculator, and I got 41.64. Okay, so that's 41.64 millimeters, right? And the question, though, is asking us how many centimeters, right? So we had to take this 41.64 and convert it into centimeters. And luckily, they've given us this conversion factor right here, all right? So here's what you do. Whenever you want to do a unit conversion, and this will work whether you're talking about inches to feet or whatever they happen to ask you on the test, right? So take what you want to get rid of and start with that. So we have this 41.64 millimeters, right? And we want to get rid of the millimeters, and we want to go to centimeters. So let me take this 1 millimeter equals 0.1 centimeters, all right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to write this as a fraction, and I'm going to put the 1 millimeter on the bottom. Okay. Now, why would I put the 1 millimeter down here in the bottom? Well, the reason is because the units are going to cancel out, and I'll be left with an answer in centimeters. So let me write the 0.1 centimeters up here. And remember, right, the bottom of a fraction, whatever's in the bottom, we call that the denominator, and whatever's in the top, we call the numerator. So we're going to do 4.41.64 millimeters times 0.1 centimeters, and right, what we do here, because it's millimeters divided by millimeters, the units cancel out, and our answer will be in centimeters. So in my calculator, I'm doing 41.64 times 0.1, so I get the number 4.164. And that happens to be answer choice B. Okay, question 3 has to do with social studies. So it says, this 1909 cartoon deals with the topic of women's suffrage. So let me show you the cartoon. And so I'm going to go back and forth between the cartoon and the answer choices a few times here so you can see them. But basically, here is our cartoon. So keep in mind we've got the words election day. And so we see the picture here, right? So let me scroll down a little bit. There's not much happening that's relevant at the bottom of the photo here, but we do have a caption. It says 1909 cartoon, Library of Congress. So just keep that in mind here. And so now let's read the question. So it says, which of the following opinions is the cartoon expressing? Answer choices. In 1909, some women wanted the right to vote. B, women who vote will neglect their families. C, many women have more than one child. Or D, babies often cry when their mothers leave. So think about which of the following opinions is the cartoon expressing. And let me pull this picture up again here. So if you want, you can pause the video and take a better, longer look at the picture. So when you're ready, then unpause the video and we'll go over it. Okay, let's go over this. And so this is kind of a question where you kind of either see it or you don't. But basically, the idea here is you first need to realize that this has to do with an election because it says election day. So you have to think that it has to do with voting. And also, the topic is women's suffrage. So women's suffrage, women getting the right to vote. It's good to have a general understanding of history before you go into the GED because then you would know that women's suffrage had to do with women getting the right to vote. But if you weren't sure what that means, then that's totally okay. You don't necessarily have to have a good background in history to do well on the GED, but it can certainly help. But basically, we know that this has to do with voting because it talks about women's suffrage and it says election day here in the picture. So based off of that, we can eliminate C and D, right? Because they're not relevant to voting here. So we would then be left with A or B. So it's either that A, in this year, some women wanted to vote, or that women who vote will neglect their families. So you have to think here, what's the opinion that the cartoon's expressing? So when I look at this, the way I see their opinion, like whoever wrote this painting, they're trying to say here, it looks to me at least like the man is going to be here struggling with the kids while the woman goes to vote. And based off of that, then you would pick B, and B is the correct answer. Okay, question 4. So let me pop off the screen here a little bit so that we can read this here. So question 4 gives us a passage here. So let me read the passage here. And I'm going to read it at a moderate pace here, but if you need to, you can pause the video and please read it at your own pace. And if you'd like to, you can even rewind the video and you can look through this passage more closely if you need to, or even click the link down below and you can look at the passage on your own computer screen to help you answer the question. But let me go through this, and if I'm reading too fast or slow for you, then just pause the video, and I'm expecting that you'll do what you need to do to make sure that it's making sense to you. All right, so it says change in policy email. To all employees from Human Resources, subject change in policy. So actually, you know what, before I read this whole passage, let's just look down at the question here. So that's always a good strategy, is before you go right into reading a full passage on the test, it's a good idea to just look at the question so that way you know how much of it you have to read, because you won't always have to read every single word of the passage. So it says here, who was in the office during the break-in? And it gives us a few answer choices. So it's either going to tell us directly who was in the office, or it's going to make us use some common sense here. So let's read this now. So it says, the email is to notify you of a change in our after-hours work policy. Formerly, approved employees were allowed on the premises during evening hours. Effective this Monday, we can no longer allow employees on the premises after 8 p.m. This decision was reached based on security concerns. The safety of all of our employees is of the utmost concern to us, and recent events have caused us to re-examine our current practices. Although many of you have probably heard this already, we want to officially inform you that our security system was breached and our office building was broken into. Luckily, no one was hurt. There was one person working in the office, and she managed to call the police and remain undetected by the thief. The thief stole money from the safe, as well as laptops and iPads. He or she escaped before the police could respond and has not yet been identified or arrested. Until we can confirm that the building is secure, you must not be in the building after 8 p.m. Then it says, we would prefer that employees leave the premises by the end of the regular workday at 5 p.m. We understand, however, that project deadlines often require working past the end of the regular workday. If you want to be in the building from hours of 5 p.m. to 8, we urge you to be vigilant and call 911 immediately if you detect suspicious activity. Then it says, this company takes the safety and well-being of its employees very seriously. We are working on acquiring advanced security to monitor the grounds later at night, but until then, please be sure to leave the building in a timely manner. Then the question says, who was in the office during the break-in? So D, hopefully we can eliminate D. It says no one, so obviously somebody was there. So it's either A, B, or C. So get a good look here. Some employees, one janitor, or one employee. And so like I said, you can pause the video, figure this out, and if you need help, either rewind the video or click the link and you can read the article for yourself. And then we'll go over the answer. Okay, so this question right here, right, hopefully we see it says there was one person working in the office and she managed to call the police and remain undetected by the thief. So in this case, it was just that one person, and it just tells us right here that it was just that one person, right? So the answer is C, one employee. Now, why did I read the whole passage? Why didn't I just read this? There was one person working in the office and stop. Well, the reason why I kept reading was just to make sure that there wasn't going to be a twist or anything, like maybe, I don't know, there was some kind of twist to this or some kind of trick here, but nope, it was really that simple. Right there was the answer. It just says there was one person working in the office. So hopefully you see here C, one employee.